The following are the words of Louis Civello, President of the Suffolk County Police Benevolent Association.
Police officers risk their lives to protect our communities and keep our streets safe. These officers are the thin blue line that stands between your family and the criminals that would do them harm. We are your neighbors, protecting your neighborhood. Hold the line. Support law enforcement. Stand with the Suffolk County PBA.
The following radio show is live, except for the announcement you're hearing right now.
Welcome back to Your Island Live with your host, Tom Schiliro, on 103.9 LI News Radio.
And once again, welcome back as we're moving right along. What do we do every other Tuesday? We have the great Louis Civello. It's always great to have Lou on, a good friend of our program. Lou is the president of the Suffolk County PBA. Many times when Lou is on, I get a lot of text messages and emails. People asking me about the PBA and what it stands for and the fact that it sounds like they're doing a great job. And they are doing a great job. And interesting enough, they actually represent, it's not just the police officers they represent the common sense middle class. And we're going to talk a little bit about that because there's not a lot of common sense going on in these 21 days before one of the most contentious elections that I have ever seen in my entire life. Louis Civello, my friend, how are you?
I'm doing very well, Tom. Great to be with you.
You know, it's so important, 21 days, and it's not really election day, 21 days. Elections are going on now. And they're getting closer and closer. We'll have ours in a couple of weeks. There's about 10, 11 days before the actual, I guess we could call it the known day. We're going to know who wins on that night because people are casting their votes now. So we're in a critical stage right now. And I want to bring your attention to the state of California with Proposition 36. Now, I don't know if you saw over the weekend, California is kind of inundated with these retail theft crimes. I know you've seen them. You know, gangs of individuals going in broad daylight. Stores are open. They don't even have to break in. They just lunge in. They wear masks over their faces, and they'll go to a jewelry store and smash in front of everybody, in front of the cameras. Amazing. And they'll assault some people and, you know, all of this stuff. There was one particularly that I'll pay attention to that happened last week. It was a 7-Eleven, and about 8 or 9 thugs were fighting this poor young man. Lou, my heart broke. This guy was probably getting paid minimum wage, working at a 7-Eleven, and he was trying to protect the store. And he's holding the doors back, and they're fighting the doors. And finally, they break open the doors, and they start beating him with a baseball bat. And the rest of the monsters just ran through the store and looted it and took the cash register and things like that. Now, California put on the ballot this Proposition 36. I am getting to a point, though. And basically, it would take those types of crimes and the level of victimization. That poor young man will never be the same to what happened to him. And again, I give him the credit for trying to protect the store when all odds were against him, to increase penalties for people that do these type of crimes. You can go on YouTube and just punch in any sort of retail theft crime, and it will come up in the state of California. Many members of the local California or the state legislature are opposed to 36, including that moron governor, Gavin Newsom, who said that will require us to build more jails, to put people in jail, and to violate their rights. I wish somebody would think about the rights of the young man who was lying on the floor bloodied up just last week as a result of that. But he's concerned about constitutional rights. Louis Civello, how do we combat that way of thinking? Now, I know we're talking about California, but it's in Albany too. I hear it from Doug Smith and Dean and Senator Dean Murray. I hear it from them all the time. And you play an integral part. You represent the police organization, but as I said earlier in the program, you certainly represent the forgotten middle class, or the people that are in line with the ideology of safety and security. How do we combat it? And this is a tough question. I understand that, Lou.
Yeah, certainly, Tom. And I think, many of these woke failed policies start on the West Coast and they migrate their way over like a mind virus across the country and certainly end up here in New York. So Proposition 36 represents a rolling back of what California did. What California did was essentially decriminalize larceny. So when they made that change in the law, they said you could basically steal. You can shoplift up to $950 without penalty. They also decriminalized certain drug crimes where you can have up to 3 grams of certain narcotics and not be held accountable criminally. Those policies are an abject failure, as is Gavin Newsom a failure as a governor, and that can be seen simply by the outcomes, where you see retail crime has overrun California, where businesses can't survive and they're closing shop in San Francisco. Places like Walmart. When you can't maintain a Walmart, you've got a problem. Again, this is a career politician who cares nothing about everyday people. This is someone who rolled out the red carpet for Xi Jinping, China, and actually cleaned up the homeless encampments for the communist dictator, but doesn't care about the people who actually live in California every single day. So it is sad. And I think the way we combat that is exactly what Proposition 36 is seeking to do, and that's with grassroots action. Yeah. That sort of everyday citizen involvement, citizen engagement. And you're right, Tom, we do play an integral role in that. We're a counterbalance to some of these forces out there that seek to destabilize our communities. I'm very proud of the job that my members do. I can tell you this election cycle, we do what we call our PAC walks, our political action walks, where we're actually going out, and I've talked about it on your show before, yes. And we're talking to community members. We're going door to door. We're letting people know why we endorse certain candidates and why we feel that they put a priority on public safety, and how important it is that you have to vote. And you made a very important distinction, Tom, where you said that election day is now. Early voting, is beginning. You have to early vote. If you wait, you never know what could happen on election day. We saw it with the snowstorm over in Nashville in that Swazi-Mazzi race. Yeah. There was a snowstorm that day, and a lot of people were disenfranchised. They actually didn't get to vote because they couldn't get out to do it, or they may be elderly, that sort of a thing. So make your vote count. Vote early.
And you do raise the point, because I've been watching that Proposition 36, because I want to know if the people in the state of California are starting to get it, and we'll know November 5th, or do they have their heads screwed on backwards to vote against a bill like that, because the governor is campaigning against Proposition 36, as I said before, because he doesn't want to put people in jail, and also worried about the constitutional rights. I invite anybody listening right now, go on YouTube, Google something like 7-Eleven attack California, whatever. It'll come up because it went viral. It's all over the place. And you tell me about the constitutional rights of those individuals doing what they did, the blatant disregard for any law, including the laws as Louis Civello is telling us, and where anybody should be concerned about constitutional rights. They'll have a right to a trial. They'll have a right to remain silent. They'll have a right to no cruel and unusual punishment, not like what they did to that poor young man. I mean, they'll have a right not to have that, but at the same time, they will be incarcerated, which means they will not be able to do another level of victimization. And I know, Lou, some of the things that you've been doing. You guys go up to Albany and you fight for these bills. And they're not just pro-police bills, as we're talking about. They're pro-people bills. They're bills that are trying to make it safer for all of us, and also for our police to be able to do their jobs. And I know I'm speaking with a lot of anxiety right now, because I fear for this country. I fear that we're not going to get it. And I think we have to do everything that we could. How are the men and women on the street? These political situations do exist, but how are they still coping with this? Sometimes I wonder about that, Lou.
Yeah, it's very difficult, and it's been very difficult for several years not to let the morale sink to the point where you don't want to do your job. Because we have had these forces, these political forces, essentially working against us, looking to defund us, looking to demoralize us, and basically dismantle police departments across this country. There was a battle up in Ithaca, right, to dissolve that police department, to put unarmed social workers in its place. So we've been fighting those battles, Tom, and we do a lot of stuff on the state level. We're also very involved on the national level. So we have conversations with the Los Angeles Police Protective League. That's our counterpart over in L.A., and they're involved in a lot of races. That Proposition 36, if you believe the polls, it's on track to pass. So I do think that people in California are sick of it. That DA, that pro-criminal DA, Gascon, he's up for election. I know the Los Angeles Police Protective League has taken a position. They're very involved in that race and getting that person out. He's another Alvin Bragg, somebody who refuses to prosecute crime, violent crime. would rather prosecute people that defend themselves, as in the case with the bodega worker who defended his own life.
Yeah.
And, he sought to prosecute him, the Daniel Penny case. Another instance where somebody defending his own life, defending other people, the only time that this person wants to prosecute someone is when it's someone who fits, his narrative, not actual people who are out there victimizing and preying on, our citizens. So I think being involved politically, it's not just relegated to here in Suffolk County. It's something that's happening nationwide, and our police unions across this country play a very important role in that and in uplifting the morale of the men and women who are out there risking their lives.
If anything, those are 1 and 2 on how important they really are. And I'm also very impressive that you have that knowledge. So what is that telling me? And that's telling our listeners that there is this coordination, even if it's just verbal, between the East Coast and the West Coast, because we all stand in terms of the support for public safety. And I'm glad to hear what you're saying, because I'll tell you the truth, I wasn't that much aware of the mere fact that the Suffolk PBA would be in dialogue with Los Angeles or with different sections of the country, and how important that is, and how important it is to at least exchange that information to see what everybody could do for everybody else. See, I don't think we're that different. I think we're all the same when it comes down to public safety and so on. I think what amazes me is we can hear past statements made by the Vice President of the United States, currently the candidate for president of the Democratic Party, who compares immigration customs enforcement to the Ku Klux Klan, to decriminalize people who cross the border, and to talk about defunding police agencies. You mentioned Ithaca, a prime example, that those feelings don't go away. See, now, of course, people are saying, well, she doesn't feel that way now. Those are radical feelings. I wonder if somebody could have a catharsis. Oh, my God, I should never have said that. This candidate for president, she supported that. She raised money for that. She went out there and advocated for that. So the fear is what could happen if a person like that is elected president. What could happen to the Suffolk County PBA? What could happen to policing in the state of New York, in the rest of the country? Any thoughts on that? Because that's a scary proposition.
It certainly is, and that's why this election is so critical. I think in a free nation, in order for people in power to remain in control, they have to have the loudspeakers. And if you look at Kamala Harris and the Democratic regime, they certainly have the loudspeakers, Tom. They have the New York Times. They have the Washington Post.
Yeah,
they have every major network out there pulling for them. I think if you watch some of the debates, you can see the bias. And in addition, they have Google. Google controls what you search for, and those algorithms are going to pump out things that are favorable to Vice President Harris. So it's incredibly important, one, that we stay engaged, that we stay involved, and that's what police unions across this country are doing. We're the counterbalance to some of these things, to some of these lies. Like when you look back where a lot of this anti-police demonizing of police came from, a lot of it is based on lies. Michael Brown, hands up, don't shoot, lie, made up. Propagated by Obama, the former president of the United States, just outright, and they repeat them enough, and they have the loudspeakers, and people start to believe some of this nonsense, and that's why it's important for us, one, to remain engaged, and two, to protect the First Amendment, Tom. There is a war on the First Amendment right now under this administration. Yeah. This administration has done more than probably any in the past to put forward censorship, to silence Americans, to silence us on our social media accounts, to cast whatever is inconvenient to them as disinformation. The correct way to combat disinformation is to have people that are educated and knowledgeable have a debate. It's not to silence our opponents, and that's what they seek to do. There's a reason that the Founding Fathers made the First Amendment number one, right? Because if you lose that freedom of speech, if you lose that First Amendment, well, then all the other rights go behind it. Every one of those other rights depend on that First Amendment. Yeah. So it's incredibly important that we protect that right, and I think the First Amendment is at stake in this election, because if we elect Vice President Harris, we're going to see more of the same. We're going to see more fact checkers. We're going to see more disinformation, or what they call malinformation, which is information that they will say is truthful. It's truthful, but it's inconvenient and it can do harm. So we'll censor that as well. That's not America, Tom. That's not what we want for our country. It certainly is not something that benefits our police, because our police have been a victim of this, where information and censorship and disinformation has been used to demonize our police officers. It's something that is at stake in this election, and it's critically important that we all get out there and vote and reject this idea that the government should police our speech.
Yeah. Again, well said. Well, good point. I'm also thinking of every time Donald Trump makes a speech, he always brings in qualified immunity. The first thing that pops into my head, that's great that he does that. He brings a qualified immunity for our police officers and for our first responders and how important that is. And you would think under normal circumstances with just a regular crowd, you might not have to be so focused, but he still brings in his support for the police when he's in the greater body politic, so to speak. And I think that says something in terms of his commitment to policing and to first responders in this country. The only thing I'm a little confused about, maybe you can help me about that. As president, could he bring in qualified immunity to local police departments, or would that only be done on a federal level? Have you ever looked into that, Lou?
Yeah, I think there would be an opportunity. So federal laws, to a certain extent, can trump state and local laws.
Right.
No pun intended there with the word Trump.
Right.
But there is the issue of states' rights. So states have a certain amount of autonomy to pass their own laws. If we were to pass some sort of federal guarantee, federal police officer Bill of Rights,
yes,
that was able to pass both houses and be signed by the president and be enshrined into law, yes, we could deliver qualified immunity across the country. Yeah, it takes a lot to do that. I certainly think President Trump is up to the task. I know members of Congress here, like Congressman Nick LaLota, Congressman Andrew Garbarino, Congressman Anthony D'Esposito, all supportive of that idea of a police bill of rights and protecting qualified immunity. Again, a lot of misinformation about qualified immunity because it's been twisted by the other side. They paint it as some sort of absolute immunity for police officers that we can run around and do whatever we want. Nothing could be further from the truth. No. In fact, it's ridiculous to state that. Qualified immunity is anything but. Qualified immunity basically says if you're acting in good faith and you're doing your job according to your rules and procedures and following the laws, well, then if something gets screwed up, well, you're not going to be held liable. At that point, it will be the municipality that will be sued and not you personally. So if for instance, Tom, let's say you get a warrant, right? And the warrant, it gives you the right to go do a search, and you make an arrest based on that warrant. And then we find out that the judge signed in the wrong spots, right? Well, you didn't have probable cause to go into the house. If there's no qualified immunity, you can now be sued, civil rights violations. You could, your own house could be up on the line for making that mistake because of something that a judge may have done, right? With qualified immunity, no. You acted in good faith. You believed you had a valid warrant, and you were following the rules and procedures of your department. If there is a lawsuit, the municipality can be sued, but not the police officer. That's essentially what qualified immunity is. And it's not only enjoyed by police officers, it's enjoyed by teachers, judges, politicians. The only group that they want to take it away from is the group that makes split-second decisions, law enforcement officers. Everybody else, whether it's, teachers, politicians, everybody else, no one's trying to take qualified immunity away from them, only from our brave law enforcement officers. Again, making us a scapegoat, painting us as something that we are not. And essentially, it would be another step towards dismantling police departments across this country, because I know I certainly wouldn't want to go out there and do this job thinking that my house and the home that my children live in would be at stake every time I make a decision and actually follow my department's rules. Exactly.
And I think if Trump is to be successful and we could codify a police bill of rights, I love the idea. I'm on it. I'm telling you, I love the idea. I also think that a police bill of rights, for the most part, is also protecting the public, the people that are listening to this program right now. Because as I said earlier in the program, as you also said, is that they run in sync. What is good for law enforcement, what is good for public safety, is good for the average person. I got 20, 30 seconds left. Any final thoughts on your part, Louis Civello?
Yeah, just as always, want to thank my membership out there. They do an incredible job. We had an officer hurt just a few days ago in an accident. It's dangerous out there, not only in terms of combating crime and dealing with criminals, but also in just enforcing traffic. So that officer, thankfully, is on the mend, and I'm grateful to God for that. And again, I'd ask your audience to pray for our police officers and keep them in your thoughts, and thank your audience for all the support.
Amen to that. Once again, Louis Civello, president of Suffolk County PBA. Lou, we'll talk to you again in a couple of weeks, my friend.
Sounds great. Thanks, Tom.
Okay, we'll take a short break. When we get back, let's take some phone calls. We got our next guest won't be until 1:35, but John Laval, working with the Trump campaign, will be coming on 1:35. But we'll open up the phones at 1:05, folks. 631-451-1039.